Computer, Lego Batman here. Play PodcastPD.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to episode 81 of Podcast PD. My name is Chris Nessie, at Mr. Nessie on Twitter, also host of the House of EdTech podcast, and I am joined, as always, as we start to get into the swing of things, by my podcast compadres, AJ Bianco and Stacey Lindis. And let's start with the coolest cat on the block, the one with the newly recharged power supply, Stacey Lindis. What is up?
Not much. I got home today after a 6.5 mile run, and I was very hopeful that the power would be back on. It's been out since Tuesday. I don't know if it was considered a hurricane when Isaias landed in New Jersey, but it was definitely enough to do a crazy amount of damage. So right now I'm just rejoicing in air conditioning, running water, and a toilet that flushes.
Your toilet requires electricity?
We have a well and septic. So in order for the water to refill the tank, yes, it requires electricity.
All right. I just learned something new. Stacey has an electric toilet. Very cool.
I mean, I'm new age.
She's new age. Hashtag new age. Before I introduce AJ Bianco, maybe you're joining us on Periscope. Maybe you're joining us on Facebook. But wherever you're watching, that's not YouTube, head over to podcastpd.com/live because that's where the party's at, where you can interact with us via chat. And I mean, you can watch from anywhere and get into it by going to podcastpd.com/live. If you want to contribute to the conversation or you've got a question, we are here for you as we record on a Sunday night. AJ, how you doing?
Living the dream. It's summer. It's August. It's wonderful. Hot.
It's baseball.
Humid days. Baseball is going.
We don't want to talk about baseball, Stacey.
Yeah, it's.
I did hear it's not going well.
Yeah.
Basketball's going well, though.
I don't watch
Their
that.
pod is better.
We don't watch that.
They're what?
Their pod is better. Their bubble.
Their bubble.
Their bubble.
They're living in a bubble. Baseball's actually not living in a bubble.
Well, that's part of the problem.
Wow. But anyway, everything else is going well. Hurricane came through and did its damage and left its mark on New Jersey, especially in this area. So cleaning up this week and this weekend, but we're back at it. Let's do it.
How'd you end up losing power today?
So a tree fell down the block, knocked out power. I saw it. Knocked out power to the other side of the street, which was the weirdest thing. Luckily, I had power all week, but watching the people behind me not turn their lights on for days is kind of just a freaky thing.
Welcome to my world. Right,
I'm sure. So they were working on that tree today, and they had to cut the power so that
to finish it up.
Yeah, so nothing happened. Some wonderful gentlemen from North Carolina came up to assist.
Yeah, we had Florida people up here.
Yeah, they're really nice.
3 crews from Florida. Took them 3 days to do it.
Yeah, they're still running around the area. There's still power out in some places, but they're rocking and rolling. They're being helpful.
I heard that there are some places that aren't getting power back until the COVID's gone.
What?
That's like, is that a joke?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing.
I don't know. That's probably a pretty terrible joke right now.
Yeah, that was so funny.
Make sure you edit that one.
Wonderful.
Great. That's at 4:06 if you want to take private notes there.
I'm going to leave my bad joke in because I'll laugh at it later.
At least somebody will.
There you go.
Chris, what's new with you?
What's new with me? So I only lost power for about 35 hours. It was hell. I mean, not as hot as your hell, Stacey, but it was frustrating to have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old and no electricity. I imagine it's similar with older boys, and AJ, you just lost it for a few minutes.
Yeah, but no, we learned from Sandy that you have to have a generator where we live. So quite honestly, when we walk
anybody
down
who knows me knows I don't learn my lesson, so I still do not have.
Yeah, but we lost power for 9 days during Sandy, and then when the ice storm came in right before Halloween, we lost it for another 5. Never again. We've never really been completely without power. It's just that the generator doesn't have enough power to do the air, and usually we can do the well, but our generator crapped out, so we were actually using a smaller generator that didn't do the well. So yeah.
Let me ask, since I am at least putting in the effort to learn about generators. Do you have a like gasoline or other fuel powered one, or do you have like one of these magical natural gas ones that like your power goes out, this thing turns on, you don't even have to think about it?
We so we have a gas one. When we get the addition done, we're gonna have one installed.
Oh,
so then
cool.
It will be like a magical one where the power cuts out and backup starts.
Yeah, speaking of backup, you're having an addition put on the Linda's
Oh yeah,
estate?
yeah.
Podcast studio?
No. What?
I don't know.
No.
That's how I think.
Yeah, no.
Are we gonna get to come over and like hang out and play
In the backyard? I don't know. Like, just an addition.
We won't be allowed in the addition, but we can.
No, you can go inside. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. No, we're just bumping out. Yeah. And getting a generator and 2 bathrooms.
Do I have one for that? I think I do. Stacey's just bumping out her house. No, not good. Maybe it's this one.
Moving on.
Moving on. So tonight, and for this episode, we are looking ahead to the 2020-2021 school year.
So hard to say, isn't it?
So
AJ and I talked about that the other night, where it's hard to say this particular school year. Stacey, what do you think about that real quick? First, say it.
2020, 2021. It's a 2021 school
No,
year.
you can't say 2021 because then it's 2021, which is next year.
Right. It's this year, next year.
No, but you can't say 2021 because it's 2021. That's next year. This is 2020, 2021.
Things don't get right again, according to AJ and I, until next school year, when you can say the 21-22 school year.
Right. You
But
can't say 2021
school year.
Because that's next year. That's September of next year.
If you have thoughts on this, please put it in the chat. And if you're checking
Or
in on the
ignore
chat,
us.
or ignore us. If you're checking in on the chat, let us know where you're from, where you stand on how to say the current school year as we get ready to talk about the current school year. And as we...
What is it? COVID 2.0?
Hush your mouth.
Okay.
But our conversation tonight, we want to address 3 things. We want to know, 1, what are you looking forward to? 2, what do you have reservations about? And not to outdoor dining. And number 3, what is your top goal for the year? So, Stacey, you're a lady. Which question do you want to start with?
Let's talk about reservations, and we'll end on
reservations. All right. So, what do we have reservations about for the coming 2020-2021 school year?
I'm going to go away from the doom and gloom. I'm just going to say I have reservations about being able to build relationships. This will go my goal for later. Being able to build more relationships with students. For me, because I don't know how I'm actually going to be able to do that as much as I wanted to, trying to get into more classrooms coming into this school year. That's my reservation.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think at least with some of the teachers that I'm speaking with, that's one of the main reasons they even want to go back, is so that they can at least start the year with their kids. I think most people see that down the road, we are eventually going to be virtual. But for those of us who are starting either in a hybrid model or in a fully in-person model, I think that is one of the things to look forward to, is that you will be able to do that. But I think for those of us who are starting virtually and, I don't know. Anyway, those of us who are starting virtually, I think that is the biggest struggle. It's the one thing that I've worried about all year, is that how do I, at least when we went virtual in March, I already knew my kids, right? I had over 100 days with them and they knew me, I knew them. There wasn't something covering my face. There wasn't, a barrier like this where we're talking online. We really got to know each other. We got to build community. They got to build community with one another. They got to know each other. That's so important.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. I'm still wrapping my head on how to replicate that. I have a way to do it with myself and my students. I just don't know how you really foster that virtually. And even live, I think so much of what we did in my classroom anyway, morning meeting is a very touchy feely kind of thing where you're shaking hands or you're doing fist bumps or you're like doing different greetings. And a lot of times they're touch. And, there are also times when kids can say, no, thank you. Like it's not a forced thing. But how do you do that when everything is 6 feet? Like that's also one of my reservations. Like I have zero concept of what 6 feet is. Like I know that like when I'm out in the real world, and I don't mean that literally. I mean that like for example, I went to the grocery store on Thursday. I ran into someone that I knew from school, and there was no way. Like I thought about it as I walked away. I was like, there was no way we were 6 feet apart. Like, and what is it like? What does it look like to teach a child 6 feet apart?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're like leaning in and you're trying to do reading, like I don't know. Like I'm gonna have to wear. I can't wear glasses to see to read because my glasses don't work that way, but I'm not going to be able to read their books from 6 feet away.
How do your glasses work?
I'm farsighted. No, I used to be nearsighted. Now I'm farsighted.
Okay.
After the LASIK. So like I need them to see far away or if I'm extremely tired. And when I wear them to read, I get sick. I have to take them off.
Yeah.
It's like reverse. It's reverse bifocals.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people still who don't quite understand social distancing. I had to pick up milk the other day. And I was at Wawa, and they have like these little stickers on the floor.
Yeah.
Stand here, 6 feet, blah, 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 blah.
Big round ones.
And I don't mind standing on the spot. So I'm standing on the spot, moving from spot to spot. I was maybe 7 deep on the line, and I'm not one to complain. But the person behind me was right behind me. Like, here's me, which is great for a podcast. Here's me, like, right up my butt. And I'm like, all right, maybe they don't realize. So like I moved to the next dot and right on my tail within 2 feet of me. And then I get to pay. I'm thinking, all right, when I go to pay, the person will like, let me pay. Nope. We could have held hands while I paid. I'm like, what the heck?
Maybe they reached in your pocket and you did pay.
No.
I don't know. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like, so there's that, but then there's like, I just don't know. I don't know. So that's one of my reservations too, is exactly what the classroom is going to look like for those of us who are teaching hybrid, and we'll have kids in our classroom in person.
I have some reservations about how I'm going to connect, because you and anybody who knows me, I'm, talk with the hands. I'm an outgoing, extroverted person, and I thrive on being able to connect with my kids and build relationships that are rooted in bad jokes and and things like that. So I know I'm going to have to work extra hard, and I still am not sure what that looks like with kids I don't know. I mean, teaching freshmen, I mean, as if coming to high school wasn't hard enough. Now you're a 9th grade student, and this is the learning environment you have to deal with. And again, from last episode, my school is going to be admitting to start 25% of the population at any one time. And we've got the 4 cohorts, and then, you're remote. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to look. I actually, and maybe you guys will think I'm nuts in the chat, or both of you guys, I actually reached out to my VP who oversees social studies, and I texted her the other day, and I said, do you think we could plan and schedule in the next couple of weeks like a department meeting, like some sort of Google Meet, like obviously optional, but just to start to kind of figure stuff out for whatever September is going to look like? Because, and I texted her this, I was like, if we wait till September 1st, that's not good. I was like, even if it's just me and you on a Google Hangout, I would just like to have some stimulating education conversation about what we're doing. And I mean, am I crazy, or does that seem to kind of make sense?
No, that makes sense completely. I feel like we can't forget we can't forget the connections, no matter where we're going. I think everybody needs to kind of like not walk in the first day like, oh, so this is what it looks like. I think the conversation has to be there as to, what teachers are stepping into. Like for some people, the administrators who are there, they're the ones setting up. They see it. They're kind of living it. For the teachers, they're just going to come in and be like, oh, so there's my desk. That's what 6 feet looks like. Why can't I have things over there? What happened to my rug? What happened to things on my wall? Where's that going to go? I think really having that conversation, maybe even like a virtual tour of what a classroom would look like, may be beneficial for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say real quick, again, we are streaming live, and we had a Facebook user, because we're streaming live into our Podcast PD Facebook group. I'm so glad this podcast exists. Such wonderful information and a great resource for all educators, especially now, a safe place to address the anxiety and concerns about the coming school year. Thank you for speaking freely and openly and normalizing all of these feelings. Well, you're welcome, Facebook user.
Thank you.
Are you gonna read Stephanie's?
I am. We also have Stephanie Schrocky and Scrocky. I have reservations about how students can build relationships from 6 feet apart. How are they going to feel about being in a room with friends and not be able to high five or play with each other? So what are your thoughts on the student perspective?
That?
Go ahead, Stacey. No, go ahead, because I don't want to be negative.
I have to say this has been, well, I mean, these are the reservations, right? But this has been one of the things I've struggled with the most as a parent. I get that I'm in control of what I'm able to do in my classroom, but I think my kids have this expectation that they're going to, even my middle schooler and high schooler, right? They have this expectation that they're going to go back to school and it's going to be what it was. And they have to realize they're going to go back to school, and save for some of the like footage that you've seen. And you guys heard about that girl who got suspended for showing like the hallway footage. Like, so save for some of that. And I don't think we're going to be as high in numbers out here, but like, I don't think that they are going to have any type of semblance of what normal was. And I think that for most kids, it's going to be more shocking than comforting to go back to school. And like, you think about an elementary classroom where, like AJ was saying with the rugs, right? Like, kids sit in the meeting area. Mm-hmm. That's elementary school. You sit in the meeting area. You either have morning meeting there, or you have your mini lesson there, and then you break off and you work in groups. Well, none of that's going to exist. Mm-hmm. And then you add onto all of the things like masks and the other things that we're now going to be responsible for, whether it be hand washing and sanitizing and making sure that your kids are remaining socially distanced 6 feet apart, and we're talking about taking furniture out of our rooms. We're definitely getting rid of our meeting area of carpet. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to be able to use paper because we're not allowed to go to the copy room, is what I was told. I don't know if that's a rumor. So, but like, what does it look like? So I think people have these expectations that they aren't necessarily going to have met. And I struggle with some of the parents in my community who just desperately want their kids to go back for the socialization and the sense of normalcy. And I just cannot get it through to them that whatever their expectation of normal is, it's just not what it is.
I mean, unless the expectation of normal is my child gets to go to school, that's kind of where normal stops.
Well, and they also get to go to work without worrying about it.
1 day a week, 2 days a week, and actually, as we're talking here about students,
half day.
As Stephanie brings up, half day, what if you were looking forward to having and being in class with the same teacher, I'm speaking elementary, with your best friend, but your last names are far apart and you don't go to school on the same day and you don't get to see your best friend.
Yeah.
That's going to cause some feelings and emotions that, we as adults might not be ready to think about,
Sitting on the bus with your best friend. Like, that's usually a normal thing. Like, your bus route, that we were told our buses are going to have 11 kids.
Correct. Yeah. So what I was going to say, and I feel bad about this one, like, we've basically trained our sons, and maybe the thinking is negative, but we've been very cautious. I've shared that in the past episodes. We still haven't really gone anywhere. I'm going to work, but like, Jamie and the kids really haven't left the house, unless going to her family who, are basically quarantined, right? So the boys kind of understand like what it's going to look like, what it looks like for 6 feet. We have a neighbor who's also in their school, and they play on other sides of the fence, right? So they run up and down the fence together. They're not really hanging out in the backyard together, but they kind of get it. And I feel like, for my son, my oldest, like, I feel like he's going to totally be like, stay away from me. I was told not to go near you. And I feel bad, but
my
like,
son will be like that too.
yeah, I feel bad because he's like an old man, he understands, he sees it,
Yes.
my little guy, he's my middle guy. He's starting kindergarten. He has a hard time wearing the mask. Like, he doesn't like the way it feels on his face. So I'm worried about that for him. So I'm nervous about one and not the other. But I also hate the fact that we basically train them to be like, stay away, vampire. But
Wait, can we talk about that kindergarten aspect for a second?
Go ahead.
Like, that's the other thing. Like, your son's going to school for the first time. Like, I understand he's been in like preschool or whatever, but like, his first experience in elementary school is going to be a false experience, because this is not what school is like, and it's not what school will remain looking like. But like, I wonder how many kids are going to just be like, this is school, like, this is what I waited 4 years for, 5 years for, like.
Right. And that's one of the other reservations that I have. I didn't know which way to go with this, but one of the other reservations I have is we're giving these kids really false schooling to begin with. Right.
Yes.
And like, I
that's what I was saying.
I could promote virtual. Yeah, I will. That's what we do here. I wish we can go virtual, right? Because when we put these kids in their school, we're telling, and it's not virtual because I want to stay home. This is simply virtual because I feel like we can do a lot more. I feel like we can do a lot more for our students by having them virtual than in a classroom. I feel like the experience we're putting our students in is a negative one because there is no collaboration. It's the old school of sit and get, which is something we've talked about forever as being negative. We have told our students that they should be moving around, they should be, interacting, they should be hands-on, and all of that will not exist. There is no hands-on. There is no, turn and talk. There's none of that. So I feel like the experience we're putting for our students is just not what they should have in school these days. It's not 1918.
What it's going to look like? What year did you say?
1918.
It's going to look like high school of, that we went to, sitting in rows.
Right.
I worked collaboratively.
Sharing is not caring. Not sharing is caring at this point.
Right. It's the wrong view. It's everything that we've been working to change is now being reversed. I know it's just for a year, hopefully, knock on wood. But go ahead. No.
So here's the second part of that, like that fits with that. Like, we spent all of these ways to think about how to have a CDC guideline example of what the classroom should look like in the fall, and
which keeps changing, by the way. Sorry.
Right. And I don't know about you guys, but like, how much have your districts been, and I'm not necessarily saying my district hasn't, because we've started planning, but like, how much of your districts have actually been doing to actually improve the virtual experience that so many people felt were negative and underwhelming and underdelivered in the spring? And everyone talks about this inevitability that we are going back to a virtual model at some point. When, we don't know, but I feel like we've worked on all of these different ways with these changing guidelines to set up a false experience of school, and we've paid no credence to improving the virtual model.
I've got the answer. None of them.
But why?
I can't think of any districts that offered professional development over the summer to get better at remote teaching.
Look, I can tell you why.
I have this fear in my mind that, and that's why I texted my vice principal who oversees the department, because I feel like in my mind, the first 2 days of teacher PD is going to be some garbage Google Classroom stuff that, that's not valuable, which is why I want to have the conversation now about what are we looking at? What is the reality? And how can I be successful? I don't want to wait till September 1st to figure that out.
And here in New Jersey, I blame our governor. Like, quite honestly, like, I just feel like
it's a joke.
He's offered zero guidance. He needs to be a leader. He needs to step up and say, like, I'm calling it.
It's not just him. It's the Department of Education in this state, and we're only talking about New Jersey because that's where the three of us are.
Definitely. Like, I can't believe when I found
plans in and have that all organized, and
with zero guidance from the DOE, because they were furloughed and our commissioner resigned and all of his lieutenants resigned, and I was just like, I didn't know about the lieutenants. I'd heard about Dr. Repollet. And then when I heard about the furloughs, I was like, wait, so we're supposed to make these plans and no one is there to answer questions or do the things because the department is furloughed?
They came out with frequently asked questions and guidelines after districts had to turn in their plans.
A week after.
And then the guidelines and frequently asked questions, which the FAQs weren't complete.
True.
Was a joke.
Couldn't even find them. So let me stand up for a lot of people that you're pooping on, because I'm one of them.
Do it because Well, I'm not pooping on admin.
No, but you're talking about like the virtual system. Yes, I know.
I'm talking about the system.
So for me, like my whole goal going into July was create this virtual academy of PD, right? And that's something we shared and wanted to do. As I started working on that, then I had to go back and look through the curriculum. Then I had to go back and make sure that the plan was in place. Then I had to be part of meetings because if districts are doing things correctly, they're stakeholder meetings, right? The districts are making decisions, but the stakeholders are involved in making the right questions.
And we have all that. Definitely have all doing that.
So look, between stakeholder meetings, between administrative meetings, I probably spent 30 hours, no joke, 30 hours in meetings going through the plan, administrative meetings and stakeholder meetings. Then we had to edit the plan. Then we had to make sure we submit the plan. Then we had to change the plan because the CDC guidelines came out. So all of these things started to change. For me, I've been waiting for this virtual because a month ago, I heard that he was going to make the announcement that we're going virtual. And that announcement was just that all kids can go virtual if they have the option. So I am way behind where I need to be because I need to start putting things together for both new teachers and veteran teachers so they feel comfortable in a virtual setting. I am going to work on that. And yes, Chris, as you said, September 1st is going to be like that PD, but that's all we got. That's the time we have. There's so many obstacles in the way and I don't want to complain because we're working, but there's a lot of obstacles in the way to get us to the point of where it needs to be successful because we're trying to prep and plan to make it safe and reasonable before we can just say, okay, we're going virtual.
Here's what we need to know about the plan. Sound clip now.
Doesn't matter. There are only 4 rules you need to remember. Make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan.
What is that from?
That's Wentworth Miller as Captain Cold on The Flash.
That's awesome. I think that's it too. Like, we also need to be very flexible with ourselves, with our administrators. And I think sometimes it's hard to remember that. Like right now, elementary teachers are usually starting to think about going back to their classrooms and setting up. We're starting to think about like our first week of school. We're starting to think about who our kids are. If we're lucky enough to have those kids' names, we're writing them down on desk tags and like we're making
not allowed
lists. Right. But that's it. Like I didn't even know that desk tags weren't allowed. You know, like those types of things, like, because I'm not looking, I'm waiting for, like, I know I should be reading the CDC guidelines, but again, they've changed. So
you don't want to read the CDC
even
guidelines.
Then to read the guidelines isn't all that useful because one of the things that the CDC has said is that mass temperature taking is not needed. It's not effective. You don't need to do it. And yet, there are schools all over the country that are getting ready to have nurses and other personnel take people's temperatures as they walk in the building. And that's not going to tell you anything.
Because wasn't that part of the original CDC guideline though?
Yeah.
But not
also
for schools.
Part of the original CDC guideline was kids can't get sick. Surprise. 97,000 kids are sick.
Because they finally remembered, and I've said this before, germs
they're leaving the house
to everybody.
Oh. And they're also leaving the house. It's going to be really weird when you tell kids don't leave and then they don't leave. And oh my God, kids are not sick. Now they're leaving. And guess what? Now they're sick. Imagine that. Sorry.
And
CDC is not my friend
but
right
they
now.
carry germs. Again,
well, school is a petri dish.
My kid.
Did you see? I'm going to go negative.
Hold on,
did you see somebody posted? Go ahead.
Like I said, reservation. 2 young children, burping, sneezing, and farting, the whole deal. Both of them.
Boys.
And boys. Girls do it too. Don't lie.
I'm just saying.
My daughter
they're going to go to school, do their thing, and then they're going to come back and spend time with my mother-in-law, who is an older person 3 days a week. You know?
Yes, that's
Here's a
going to be our
reservation,
caretaker.
and I'm gonna go darkest timeline. One of the three of us or our children might die.
Yeah, that's
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's
Or get sick, or because we're near. I mean, you know, both of my parents work in schools. My wife works in a school.
mm-hmm.
You know, when have you ever heard teachers over summer vacation talking about getting their affairs in order prior to the start of the school year?
Right.
Yeah. Are those, because I saw that and I was like, I hadn't thought about that. And then you just start thinking, like, should I be doing that? Or are they like doomsday people? Like, are they like the total like ears of the world and they're just walking around looking for the other shoe to drop?
I don't think it's fair to look at it that way, because we've all.
I'm just
seen
wondering,
stories.
like, I really don't know.
I have. No, hold on. I'm just saying, like, I've seen stories where, you know, person perfectly healthy gets the COVID and is dead in a week. That could be any one of us or somebody we know. And normally I'm not afraid of that stuff.
Right.
And outwardly I'm not. Like, I'm going to do my job, but there is that little piece of me in the back of my mind that wonders.
Right. I don't know. I wish that there was more guidance from our state in general that made it so that there needed to be some type of like choose from these two plans. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's not like each municipality coming up with its own plan. Like, let's put it this way, Chris. I live in a town that has 2 districts, right? Because we have our regional district for the middle school and high school.
Oh,
I still have friends at the elementary school. Their plan is completely different than what the middle school and high school are doing. What the hell is a parent supposed to do for that? Right. And then, and you have to imagine
one thing parents have to worry about.
Right. And then, I mean, among the myriad other things, but then, like, what if the next town over has a different plan? I just don't understand why it couldn't be like, plan A is this, plan B is this. And AJ, go ahead, Chris. I have one more question, but go ahead.
I was just going to say and I've sat and AJ, we talked about this the other night where, you know, I will sit and think about what's the one tweet I could come up with, you know, that will just solve all the problems. What's good, like, not for retweets and replies, but like, if I could just think of the answer to the problem and give the answer to the world. So I can't take credit for this. My mom, school nurse, came up with this. She said, why doesn't the governor just make it easy? Take the pressure off himself and the state government and just say to every school district, you decide as a district if you want to be hybrid or virtual. And put it on the districts to be like, because when you say what
that's next. That's coming.
Oh, so that was going to be my question. Like, what are the chances that these districts, because my elementary school district decided that they were going to adopt an all virtual plan as their plan A. What is the likelihood that those districts are going to get approved?
I don't have the answer to that.
When the bell strikes 12 on August 31st.
Honestly, that's what I'm thinking.
It's kind of like the spring.
There was a big
like
article
the spring where you can only, like, we're going to reevaluate in 2 weeks. We're going to reevaluate in 30 days. You know, I can't make that call now.
Our numbers are definitely going up.
Depends on what you look at, I guess.
You don't think New Jersey's numbers are going up?
I agree with you, but then I look at an article and it says they're going down. The rate is going down. Sorry, the rate.
What does that mean?
The rate of infection. So for every person you infect, right now it's like 1.3.
That's not.
I thought they wanted it under 1.
They do, but it was better than the 1.5 that it was 4 days ago.
Right. I got you.
But look, Bayonne, a district in New Jersey, for those who don't know, large district. They put an article out in the paper. They want virtual because there's so many kids. They did a test with staff, 30 staff members, I think, high school staff, trying to do like the screening in the morning. For 30 people, adults, it took them 16 minutes to scan and report on 30 people. So now imagine doing that with a high school that has like 12,000, maybe not 12,000, 2,000 kids. Half of that going to school. How long is that going to take just to get into the door?
Yeah, I will say one of the things that I heard for my building is that in any given week, our opt-out rate only has 100 and some kids coming to school each week.
Yeah.
Out of over 1,000. I think we're over 1,000.
Yeah, okay.
Is that district wide or in
Just
your
my
particular
building.
school? Just your
Just
building.
my building.
We got a pretty good split. We're almost at 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, every building is at about 50, every level. So high school is 50, middle school is 55, and elementary is 60 to 65. It keeps going up at the elementary level. I think it's going up district wide actually, but that's the percentage of people who do not want their to have in school. They want it all virtual.
It's a hard decision with young kids. Like it's a hard decision. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to get into any more than that.
Yeah. So if you've got any other reservations, leave us a comment here in the chat if you're watching live, or send us an email, feedback@podcastpd.com, on Twitter @podcastpd, on Instagram @podcastpd, or you can continue the conversation in our Facebook group, podcastpd.com/Facebook. Next up, Stacey picked behind the scenes, and we're going to move on to what is your top goal for the coming school year. So we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about goals.
Chris, jump on this one because we kind of talked over your reservations.
I mean, I made my points. Goal, my top goal for the year is going to be based on one of my reservations. My top goal for the year is to make strong connections with my students, whether that's at the high school or what I do at Rutgers. The relationships and the rapport that I build with my students is paramount to what I do, and it's the most important thing to me. And that doesn't mean, I want my kids to like me. I don't give a crap if they like me or not. I want to have a good relationship, teacher to student, where my students feel safe, my students feel supported, and my students believe that they can succeed in class with me as their instructor. So that's my number one priority. Build those relationships with my students. How I'm going to get there? Not sure yet. It's going to involve, what I do with live streaming and coming up with other versions of digital activities. I've got a lot of things that I want to explore, and the thing that will be familiar for me this school year is that no school year is a copy of another. This is going to be drastically different, but I don't just recycle the same stuff from year to year. I mean, my mindset stays the same in terms of, wanting to foster an environment of creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. It's just, how am I going to do that hybrid, virtual, remotely, and hopefully, God willing, 100% of my kids in the classroom with me.
Wait, can I challenge you on that though? Do you think your mindset stays the same, or just your goals? Because I feel like our goals shift and our mindset shifts when we learn of different strategies or whatever.
No, the verbs of my classroom, virtual or hybrid or in person, don't change. I want my kids.
No, not that. But you said your mindset doesn't shift.
Meaning, I want my kids.
But it sounds like you have a fixed mindset. That's the only reason I'm asking. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, you just said my mindset doesn't shift. So you have
a growth mindset to learn new things, to do what I want to do.
That's what I'm saying.
The things that I'm not going to budge on are creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking.
The goals and themes of your, right.
Yes. How I achieve those, that's going to look different, and I'm open to anything to achieve those goals.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, no. But it was just the way you said it. Like my mindset isn't going to shift. I was like, but that's not who you are. Anyway, so I'm with you. It's all about connections and stuff for me too. And I think one of the ways that I want to connect with my kids is to try to have some really small group type things early on, so that I get to know them and they get to know me in a way that, it's just going to have to replace some of the getting to know you things that we do in the classroom whole group. I just think it's going to be harder to get to know individuals whole group through a virtual atmosphere. So I think a lot of that is going to have to be tackled in small group, 1-on-2, 1-on-1 type things, maybe 1-on-3, depending on how it works out. And I think for me, it's like one of the things I was thinking of was like taking, like at the elementary level, you know, they all come up from the same classrooms, right? And one of the things that we were told is that they're going, like my class last year, I had 2 kids. There were always 2 kids from one classroom. So if I had kids from your classroom, AJ, like there would be 2 of them. It was never a solitary kid coming from Mr. Bianco's class or a solitary kid coming from Mr. Nessie's class. So I think one way to foster that too is just to be like, okay, so who had Mr. Nessie last year? And then I would meet with those Nessie kids first, and then meet with the Bianco kids, and then meet with the, you know, Linda's kids or whatever. So that
Gotta watch out for those Nessie kids.
those Nessie kids. But then this way, I feel like, you know, like they have something that they can talk about together. They're already a little bit comfortable, and then start introducing different kids and commingling so that we build rapport, not only one like with like teacher student rapport, but student to student rapport and relationships. That was my first thought, but the whole student to student class, whole class community is really going to be what I worry about the most, just especially if I am the hybrid person, because then I don't have my kids all together all the time.
Yeah, you're an administrator, so obviously your goals are going to be a bit different. But what
my goals
on this year?
My goals are a little different than what you're discussing there. Connections, like I said from the beginning, connections are going to be the most important thing for me. You know, I think one of the things going into last year is I had so many different jobs to do and so many different things I was trying to accomplish that I forgot about that connection piece, especially with students. So I wanted to really build better relationships with students and teachers going into this year, not thinking about COVID, right? So I'm still going to make that a goal. It's going to be difficult. So it can't be my top goal. I think my top goal is just strictly going to be support and serve my teachers as best I can, because I feel like they're going to need a lot of it. You talk about the fact that we need to help them or help teachers or help ourselves learn how to do this virtually. So I think like the PD aspect is really going to be something I have to up my game with this year, whether it's really like quick video recordings or like Stacey like used to do Tech Tuesday or Wired Wednesday, like sending that out, like really making that like an important thing, like where I used to send out something once a month, like article, podcast, tech tool. Now it's got to be a weekly thing. So I'm going to have to really push for that to be, you know, a video and an article and a podcast, all centering around like some kind of task. Like Chris, you mentioned the C's. So whether I focus on that, I think that might be like my big thing, taking your C's and working on how I'm going to make that a virtual reality. See what I did there? Virtual reality.
I like it.
Instead of virtual insanity. Remember that song? Jamiroquai? No? All right. No?
Chris is going to find it and play it for us in no time.
I can't believe if you're out there in the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, whatever you're watching us on, if you know virtual insanity, just shoot me a little bit of a Jamiroquai. It's a gift. You can look up Jamiroquai. I cannot believe you people don't know who Jamiroquai is. I cannot believe this right now.
I know the name. I just don't know the song you're talking about.
It's called Virtual Insanity.
I would know it if I heard it, I'm sure.
Thank
you. Thank you, Dave.
But actually, you know what? Why don't we open the phones? And he's been on the show before. Let's say good evening to Freddie Nunez. Freddie is a new building principal. Freddie, what's going on?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Principal Freddie. Yes. Jamiroquai.
I know that song.
The video is better than the song.
That's a good group, by the way. If you haven't followed Jamiroquai, I've been a Jamiroquai fan forever. So When she said virtual insanity, I was like, I know that.
And that's what inspired him to call in, not the conversation.
Who cares?
No, the conversation inspired me to call in. I wasn't sure if I was
Okay.
going to ask a question, but it's on everybody's mind what's going on with with reentry and everything. It's been a tough. It's been an interesting couple weeks, just to say the least. Especially because I'm just trying to get the lay of the land of my new building, and already we're starting to prep for what September is going to look like. I don't know if Murphy's gonna how do you say
Pull the plug.
get
Pull
a
the plug.
reality check. Yeah,
Do the right
But-
thing.
yeah, exactly. But we gotta get prepared regardless. So that's what we're doing.
So Freddie, what is it like walking into, like, you were working with your building up until I guess last week, and now you're in a brand new spot, and how does this come about? Like, what's your plan? What does it look like for you? How do you tackle this? Like,
So
this is huge for
I-
you.
So technically, I'm still with my whole district because they haven't let me go yet.
Okay.
But I still, to me, regardless, I've already been in my new building. I've already had meetings with my administrative team. I had my first faculty meeting on Friday virtually. So yeah, you talked a little bit about building relationships. So my priority number one was to get to know the people in the building, the people who I'm going to work with really closely. And that's my administrative team and my staff. As far as the physical part of the building, the day after I got hired, I went right into the building with the superintendent and I said, "Do you have a mock-up of what a socially distant room is going to look like?" He said, "Yeah." So we went ahead and we took a look at it, and we were going back and forth as to what might this, how's this going to look like for everything. So next couple of days, it was just me going around the entire building. I try to get into every single nook and cranny to see what space I have available to me and to my staff. And so what we did was on Monday, I got my administrative team and we walked around the building and we just started seeing how socially distant can we put each room. Obviously, some rooms being bigger than others. We started counting up and then putting in desks, and then we asked the custodial crew if they could set that up already. So our building is, as of Friday, is already in the process of being set up to be the classrooms anyway to be socially distant. We're on a hybrid schedule just like everybody pretty much is now, doing 2 days, and then Wednesday being the virtual cleanup day in the building, and then another cohort Thursday, Friday coming in. So that's what the district plan looks like right now. And we're even looking at everything from temperature checks to do we have that PPE equipment? We have sanitizers, plexiglass on, like all those little things have, we've just been kind of checklisting to see what we have and what we need. Entrance, egress, as far as faculty, staff, and students. Multiple ways to get into the building, so that way you don't have a ton of kids, coming in one spot. And so we're putting all of that together. Signs, we're gonna. My goal is to have signs littered all over the place. Just as far as washing hands, protocols for being in the bathroom, all that stuff has to be kind of thought about. And then, so that's that piece. Now you're looking at the faculty piece where, you want to provide them with training, you want to provide them with some good PD and things like that to work remotely. And we had to learn on the fly from April going in. A lot of people had to learn on the fly and they did the best they could. And I think, teachers responded well as you could think that they could. Some teachers were absolutely rock stars on how they handled it. They're going to have to continue that, in some way, shape, or form. But now it's just really, I think the one fault that we've had is we've been spending so much time preparing for what September is going to look like that we've kind of not paid any mind to what PD is going to look like going forward. And if you think about it, it is really going to look much different going forward. And so now we're going to have to kind of bring that up in the fly. And so I think one of my goals is to have some sort of like a weekly video or something like that, just to give PD resource and nuggets and show them how to use it. Nothing more than maybe like a screencast of 5, 10, 15 minutes at most. And then my department supervisors will then fill in with the PD specific to the subjects. But the technology piece is going to be, again, it's going to be huge. If you're familiar with it, that's great. If not, it's it's going to be a struggle either way. Either way, whatever we do, whatever we do is going to wind up being completely new for a lot of people. So, we just gonna have to kind of roll with it.
Yeah, and Freddie, you talk about that PD, and I'm sorry, Chris, I know you're going to jump in there. I think for the teachers who are in this, and the progressive teachers, they're probably spending all their time trying to find these new resources. So really to touch on those teachers and find those teachers who are struggling, who are nervous, and really get everybody involved, all hands on deck, help out your colleagues, and push those people and let them really know what you're doing and what you're learning in order to help them in their classrooms. Because it can't be just the administrators. It can't just be teacher leaders and supervisors. It really has to be all hands on deck to get the PD in the right spot.
You really got to leverage those people who know what they're doing as far
Absolutely.
as technology is concerned. You really got to leverage them. You got to make them understand that, they're really helping out their colleagues in that sense. And sometimes you have to do a lot of hand holding, and that'll take that extra coaching and that extra support. But, that's okay. It's only going to make them better. We have to just be able, as an administrator, I have to be able to, to coach them and say, this is going to help you in the long run. I have to have them see that, that's part of what I have to do. But you're right. There are a lot of leveraging of those who can do some kick-ass work in those areas. So, yeah.
Freddie, let me ask you, and AJ, I'd also like you to chime in too as administrators. I know that a lot of times for a school administrator, you have to deal with pushback and resistance on new ideas and what you might like to do in a school or a district. In times like this now, what is your mindset, and even what advice do you have for how other leaders can handle the definite fact that people are going to disagree and you're definitely not going to please everybody, and there's a lot of opinions and points of view on whatever that decision by a school or a district is going to be on how they're going to do A, B, and C? What advice do you have, and how are you handling the inevitable pushback on a lot of these hot button topics?
A lot of it is understanding that with leadership comes the understanding that you're not going to be able to please everybody. That's kind of a golden rule in leadership is, you're trying to do everything the best you can. And as long as you're seeing what the goal is, as far as the benefit to the students and trying to look at it from those lenses, then, at the end of the day, if I see it from that end, and if I see that it benefits the kids, it benefits the staff, and it's something that I can do within my budget, guess what? Then I'll be able to sleep at night and understand the pushback, and I'll be able to fight for it, because at the end of the day, it ultimately is for the students, and you have to come in with that mindset. If it's for the students and and it's gonna benefit them in a better way possible, then that's what you want to do. There's always going to be pushback, It could be the greatest thing. Somebody's always going to argue and complain about it. So, as a leader, I think that's something that kind of just comes with the territory. I would know that, a lot of times those the ones who are going to complain, they're always going to complain. It's always going to be about, that it could be that particular person who has 30 things that they want to argue about, So find those in your building who will support, who will, jump on the bandwagon, so to speak, and, be able to help you, spread that message as well. And sometimes they'd rather hear it from their colleague than hear it from you. So if you have if you got people on your staff who can, really see what you're trying to envision, then, utilize them to kind of help spread that message. And it'll turn some people around. Won't turn everybody. Like I said, you can't please everybody, but we come with that understanding that that's how it works.
Yeah, I think also to that point, I think really, I just said all hands on deck. I think this is really a team thing. This is not like administrators like being higher up and saying, I said so. I don't think this is one of those moments. I think health and safety are paramount for both teachers and students. So we have to keep in mind that people are extremely nervous, because like for us, we can be behind the scenes if we wanted to. We're not in the trenches like teachers are. So I think for them, we really have to work with the teachers and really just help and support them and show them that things are going to be okay. And I think the teachers have to also then in turn just kind of say, we trust you. We're doing everything we can. Like right now, it's all very scary because the teachers are not seeing it. The administrators are in the building. The administrators are making the orders for the masks, for the gaiters, for the plexiglass. There are concerns that administrators have too, but I think the teachers have to just sit back and say, okay, they have my best interests in mind. And that's where the trust and the relationships come in. And I really think it's like really having those open lines of communication of what are you nervous about? What do you need help with? We have to work together to make sure this works because, as Freddie said, this is about our students. And if it's going to work for our students, then it's going to work for the teachers. And again, health and safety is paramount. So when we look at it, we have to say, are we helping the students get to where they need to be? Are we all safe in trying to make that happen?
Yeah, and also understand that we're going through this process that's completely new to us as well. We've never had to think about ordering masks or putting plexiglass up on counters and things like that, or thinking about how you can't put kids in a cafeteria, so how are you going to distribute lunch? How are you going to have them eat breakfast? How they're going to do gym? And during inclement weather, all of those things. How do you get proper ventilation in a room that's not so well ventilated? Like all of those things, a lot of things that we have not thought about before. Now all of a sudden we have to do that. Also, the equity issue with technology. What if every kid doesn't have access at home?
Yeah.
What about if every kid does not have some form of technology or is sharing it with 3 or 4 siblings at home? So all of those things we have to kind of think of, and as we're going along, we're tech listing, and there's going to be something that comes off and we're not going to know it, and something's going to, something might happen, and we got to be like, okay, now we have to learn that lesson as we go along. So, the one thing I told my faculty when I, met with them on Friday for the first time, I said, listen, I get the anxiety. I get the anxiety. I have those pre-existing conditions that, qualify as a COVID case or anything of that nature, so I'm anxious. I'm scared a little bit as well, but I'm going through this just the way you guys are, and so I have to be able to. My attitude has always been, and this is me, I can't say this for everybody, but just I do what I need to do. I roll up my sleeves and I get to work, and and I know that can't be the same thing for everybody, but just know that I'm with you on this. I don't have all the answers for everything, but I'll get what I need to get, and I'll make sure that you're as safe as you possibly can be in the building while you're there. And that's how I had to relay the message, because it was just being real. It just is what it is. This this pandemic, everything that's going on leading into September is new territory for everybody.
And Freddie, I'm sure that message went a long way with your new staff, and I'm sure that they appreciated that very much.
Yeah, a lot of good feedback on that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
very happy for you, Freddie. Very proud of where you're at, and really excited to see what you're going to do for the school. I don't know if you want to shout out the school, if you want to keep it private, but
no, it's you know me. It's already been blasted on Twitter, so follow me at Freddie52. The Twitter handle for Palisades Park High School is PalPK Tigers. And I'm that's me doing that Twitter stuff on there too for them.
that's awesome.
So
Freddie, what did you teach before?
I was a social studies teacher, a bilingual social studies teacher, and an ESL teacher for many years.
So those are not easy shoes to fill, which is why they're holding you, right? Like,
oh no, in Newark, I was a vice principal.
Okay.
They're just holding me. They're holding me because they want me. I guess they want me to fulfill my contract.
I want you to finish making these decisions, right?
Yeah.
I know, but hey, this came out. Everything happened so fast with this. I wasn't expecting this to happen, but it happened, and I'm very thankful for it. But they got to hold me, so I'm kind of doing 2 jobs at once. But when this happens, that while you're in transition between 2 districts, that's normally the case. So
yeah.
Yeah, so I saw your announcement on Twitter, and I was like, son of a gun, good for him. Where'd that come from? But good for him.
Very like this, man. It happened in a week's time, and I was like, wow. I always knew I wanted to be an administrator. I wanted to work to be a principal. Like, this is the ultimate thing that I wanted to do. And, I was able to make it happen. And I'm very thankful, very blessed that, Palisades Park District has given me the opportunity to run this building and to really do some good things. And I'm looking forward to it.
It's good.
Nice.
Hopefully, people
Smart
will feel
superintendent.
your energy.
Yeah, no. I'm hoping I can be contagious.
That's
So
it,
Freddie Nunez, thank you for joining us. He is at Freddie52 on Twitter, and that's FREDE 5252. And he is the new principal at Palisades Park High School, which you can find on Twitter at PalPKTigers on Twitter. So check our show notes for that, podcastpd.com/81, and make sure you get connected with Freddie as join him on his journey as principal of a high school.
It's gonna be awesome. Can't wait, man. Congrats, Freddie.
Thanks for
All right,
joining
Freddie,
us.
we'll talk to you soon. All right. And first, thank you for Freddie for calling in. Again, we're here for a little bit longer as we finish up episode 81. So podcastpd.com/join, or you can put a comment wherever you're watching us, whether it's Facebook, Periscope, or Twitter. But before we move on to our last question, we want to take a quick time out to let you know that you can support the show via our executive producer program, I guess is what we could call it. So if you get value from these conversations in this podcast, you can support the podcast. You can support us on a monthly or a yearly basis. Our executive producer program is powered by glow.fm. If you go out to podcastpd.com/executive producer, you can support us monthly or yearly, $5 a month or $50 a year. As a thank you for your support, every executive producer will receive a Podcast PD sticker. And if you become a yearly supporter, you will get a Podcast PD mug and a Podcast PD t-shirt. Want to give a special shout out to our current executive producers, Adam Kelly, and our newest executive producer, Mike Barilla. Thank you, Mike, for coming on board and supporting what we do here on Podcast PD. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I also like Mike's feedback and comments in our Voxer group on our summer PD.
Yes.
He always got something insightful to say.
Besides being a
Everybody in our
Phillies
group.
fan, Mike's a good dude.
Yeah. All right. So let's finish up with our last question, which is, again, Stacey and AJ, you wanted to end this on a high note. So what are you looking forward to this year?
I'm looking forward to year 2 in 5th grade. I'm looking forward to having a little bit of knowledge about the curriculum underneath my belt. And even though I know the year is not starting out the way it did last year, I'm looking forward to that adventure a little bit too. Just kind of trying to embrace what's in place for us. I know districts are working hard, and I know, we were, all of us, maybe just a little bit negative in the beginning, but that was our reservations, right? Like, I really feel with more guidance, districts could have done a better job focusing their time on efforts that I think will be more important. Everyone keeps joking that in New Jersey, the governor is going to pull the plug on the 31st. Well, I just feel like then that's two lost months. And, as a community member, I listen to the parents who are struggling with the 3 or 4 lost months in my town. I just feel like, yeah. Anyway, not to be negative again. I want to end on a positive note. So Chris, you can take all of that out if you want. I'm excited to go in with more knowledge about what we did. I'm excited, as Freddie was talking about, like making teams. And I think AJ was saying the same thing. Like it's going to be a team effort and it's going to be all hands on deck. Like one of the things my principal said is that we will be working in teams, and the expectation is going to be that we are sharing things not only across our grade level, but across our entire school. So we are 3 grade levels, and then across our district, so that we can be working and should be working with our counterparts in 5th grade at the other building. And right after that meeting, someone jumped in and said, hey, let's start talking about what our strengths are so that we can start building mini cohorts of people who are going to plan these different lessons, so that we're not all reinventing the wheel for everything, especially for things that are going to be recorded or sent out en masse that don't need the individualization that we have in place when we're with our kids face to face. Not to say that we're not individualizing, but when a lesson can go out one way and then you individualize for small groups or one-on-one. It just saves a lot of time. So I'm looking forward to that.
AJ, how about you? What's the administrative spin on the school year for what do you want to see? What do you want to look
Yeah,
forward to?
I'm going to take the hat off for a second. I'm going to go personal. I'm looking forward to seeing my kids go to school. I'm looking forward to Daniel start kindergarten. I'm looking forward for Ryan to go to second grade and get excited about learning again, because then it was hard at home. Getting them moving, trying to do their virtual work. From May until the middle of June. March until the middle of June. It became extremely tedious. It became a fight. And I didn't like that, because I'm working, Jamie's teaching, they're working on their stuff. I'm yelling, trying to take care of the baby. It was difficult. So I'm excited for them to get back into a swing of school. If it's virtual, we're going to make do, but I'm looking forward to that. As for me, what I'm looking forward to, I'm just looking forward to health and safety for everybody. To be honest with you. That's all I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm hoping for.
I really like that.
I do too. Everything you both said, I also feel that as well. But AJ, I truly want to echo, and that's the personal aspect of this. I want to see my family safe. I want my own children to have a good experience, because I wear that dad hat first. Don't tell Caitlin, although the husband hat's important too. I want those that I care about to be safe. Again, both of my parents work in schools. My sister-in-law is also in education, and I just want everybody to be safe, because I don't want anybody to become a statistic in any way, shape, or form, other than saying I'm part of the group that beat this damn thing. So that's what I want. I'm looking forward to a healthy experience, and then everything else ultimately will take care of itself. Again, I'm in no position to make major decisions for anybody other than the students I work with. And any given time, I, like every other teacher around the world, is going to make the decision that's best for their kids in the moment, as I've always done and will continue to do. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Oh,
Well said. Well said.
yeah, definitely. And I think that we all need to keep this in mind. And I just need to remind myself, this is really what I'm saying, is that we really do need to be flexible. We need to be gracious with the people who are putting the plans in place. We need to understand that our administrators, while they are responsible for coming up with a plan for the district, they are dealing with what they were given, good, bad, or otherwise, and they're trying to make the best of it. And I need to keep reminding myself that, because I just, I know how easy it is for myself and others to just kind of dwell on the negative. But just be gracious. Be gracious with your teachers. Be gracious with your kids. Be gracious with your kids' teachers. Be gracious with your administrators, and be gracious with yourself.
Yes. I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah. As a parent, give yourself some hugs. As a teacher, give yourself some hugs. And, just remember to hug the people in your life back. They need it. Even
Absolutely.
though for some of them, it is going to be a 6-foot hug. It's an air hug.
Virtual hug for both of you.
Oh, you too, Chris. I think I might get some pool noodles and figure out what this 6 feet looks like.
Stacey, I could picture you wearing
a pool noodle dress. This is what I envision.
A pool noodle dress where it looks like helicopter blades.
Exactly.
All
yes.
Rainbowed out.
And it's on suspenders or something. I have to figure out how to rig it.
It almost seems like something like Robin Williams or Pee Wee Herman would wear.
Yes. Like a Morgan Mindy type costume.
Yes. Nanu.
Yeah. But I constantly think to myself, even today. So Chris, today I was in Wawa and I was totally feeling you with the dots on the ground. And I was like, those two guys are not 6 feet apart. And I was like, probably because the 6 foot part, is it center to center? Is it edge to edge? Do you know what I mean? Right. But there was no way these two guys are 6
in my hand, everybody.
like, there's no way that these two guys are 6 feet apart. And I was like, I know this because my wingspan is 5'1", right? And I'm like, that's what I was trying to think. I'm like, a little bit
You're like
longer
a
than my
freaking
height.
pterodactyl.
A little bit longer than my height. And I don't know. Yeah, poo noodles. I hope they're 6 feet because that would make it better. I don't even know if they are. I don't think that they are, but well, I add some dimension, right? So
My dimension's getting smaller.
ooh, how's that going?
Not a CrossFit.
I'm CrossFitting it.
Are you?
It's going good. Yeah,
You're back at
I am.
CrossFit?
I've been back since June 1st. August 1st was my CrossFit anniversary. So 1 year in. And in the first year, from August 1st to August 1st, I lost 20 pounds. The most I had
That's
lost
awesome.
during that time was 25. And now this month in August, Kate and I were kind of playing with Whole30. And
Yeah,
then
I
in
saw like a couple of stats where you guys had gone 30 long or for something.
Yeah. She's doing like virtual Peloton type stuff. We don't have the bike. Again, we're educators. But she
It's
did
an
the
expensive
workout.
thing. Yeah.
I've looked into it. I've wanted it very badly.
Yeah. So she got a not Peloton bike and she does them virtually. But in September, once we don't have barbecues and stuff, and it's really more easy to do Whole30, we're going to commit to the full Whole30. But this month I'm not drinking milk, cutting down on the sweets. So I'm doing a lot of apples and applesauce and orange juice and a lot of water. So I'm just trying to change some things. And since August 1st, I've lost another 6 pounds. So
Nice.
the journey towards me being less round is going well.
Chris, that's like almost a pound a day, right? Today's just the 9th.
Today's the 9th.
Yes.
Wow. What's your secret? I need to do that. I need to lose weight.
Just told you.
I know. But I don't drink milk because milk is
I kick my own
gross.
ass once a day, Monday through Friday.
Okay, fine.
And when I can't do it, my coaches yell at me. So
we can yell at you if you want to, Stacey.
Did you drink milk today?
Oh God, no.
Did you have an apple?
yeah,
Milk is
I don't
so
think Stacey
nasty.
drinks the milk. Milk is, yeah.
Mm-mm.
She's
All
not
right.
looking for strong bones and stuff like that.
No, I will. I will be cracking when I'm at 60, like all kinds of dusty bones. I just can't.
Yes.
I
Dusty
get
bones and
my calcium via a pill, and I'm quite proud of it.
There you go. Speaking of something we're proud of, we're going to transition to what we are listening to, what we're learning. And here's a podcast update. We are adjusting this segment. No longer are we going to burden Stacey or you who's listening with 3 recommendations per episode.
Woohoo!
So we are going to come at you, one of us, going forward. When we get to this part of the show, we're going to give you one recommendation of either an episode or an entire podcast that you should subscribe to and add to your rotation. And I drew the short straw, so I am going to share the recommendation for this episode. And it actually comes courtesy of one of our loyal listeners. So I want to give a strong shout out to Stephanie Scrocky, New Jersey educator. And she joined AJ and I in our sort of impromptu podcast Smackdown in our Facebook group. So again, Facebook is a powerful place. So if you're not on Facebook, cool. But if you're on Facebook and you're not in our podcast group, go to podcastpd.com/Facebook. Join our group because we go live in the group only from time to time. And the other night, Stephanie shared a podcast with me that I have truly been binging on, and I am loving it. There are 100 episodes out there, so that gets Stacey excited.
Start from
I'm
one.
excited.
And I downloaded them all.
I'm excited.
No.
True that, yeah.
And the name of the show is called 20,000 Hertz. It's not a CrossFit podcast. Hertz, the sound, Hertz. And this is a podcast revealing the stories behind the world's most recognizable and interesting sounds. So as one who creates audio content and edits audio, this is a fantastic podcast. It's got episodes that talk about the NBC chimes, the Netflix sound, the sounds that go into making your car. I listened to the car episode, which is early on, which talks about how cars today, because they're so soundproof, they actually pipe in artificial engine noise in what you might think would be a muscle car. So you think your engine makes badass sounds, but it's artificial because anyway. So they just crossed their 100th episode, and they actually also just got taken over by, I mean, that sounds bad. They are now a part of TED. So they're an official TED podcast, and you can find them at their website, 20k.org. And that's the number 20k.org. And Stacey, the whole time I've been talking, you're making like cringy faces. So,
all right. Because it sounds,
what's up?
Sounds super nerdy.
Wow.
It does. It sounds, but like in it, like,
hold on. They're also all less than 20 minutes.
Which
so
is
like
a
they
bonus.
Are super short.
Which is a bonus. That's, I mean, maybe I'll give it a listen. But there's it like you have to be into that. You're into sound. I'm into notebooks. I listen to a podcast about notebooks. So like,
No,
I'm just making faces like
you
this
listen
isn't
to a podcast about pens.
Oh, that's what it is. It's about pens. I don't even know what it's about. I listened. Yeah, it's about pens. It's called The Pen Addict. I'm not recommending it. Because again, it's super nerdy. You have to be into that.
But
and you're into sounds. Like you're a podcast producer.
Not even for sound. It's interesting, just the history aspect of it, because they did an early episode about, sounds that we don't even have anymore.
Like what?
Like fax machine sounds and like the modem and things like that. Like sounds that people just aren't exposed to because they're not part of our, I guess, auditory vernacular. They're not current.
They've been removed from the lexicon. The AOL sound, the dial-up sound.
Yes. Oh my God, even they talked about, trademarking sounds. That like the NBC chimes, that's one of the few sounds that's trademarked. Along with like the "You've Got Mail" is a trademarked sound effect.
Isn't Let's Get Ready to Rumble and Goal? Aren't those also
that is trademarked. Let's Get Ready to Rumble.
That is trademarked. But I mean they have one on here, that's
I know they're not
folks.
sounds. I'm just saying like
What's up, Doc?
What? All right, so it sounds intriguing.
They got a whole episode on Baby Shark.
You didn't mention the Siri one.
They have a whole episode dedicated to the voice of Siri, and they talk with the original voice of Siri, Susan Bennett, who, by the way, if she's not following you on Twitter, you don't exist because she follows everybody on Twitter.
That's funny. But wait,
they got a whole episode dedicated to You've Got Mail.
And that's my favorite movie. So
EA Sports one? They should an EA Sports one.
EA Sports.
It's in the game.
Oh, gosh.
They have an episode dedicated to silence.
All right. So this kind of reminds me, Chris, like, all right. So I can see why it's part of TED because it sounds very educational and it's got like a scattered plot of like interests.
I'm going to use this bad boy in the classroom this year.
Right. But it reminds me of when we listened to, oh my gosh.
They have an episode for Hamilton.
Do they really? That's cool. What was the show where we learned about interesting facts? Like
story behind.
The story behind. It reminds me of that.
Yeah, this is the story behind
various sounds.
Yes. They've got one all about Watergate, which sound played a big role in Watergate.
There's a whole podcast about Watergate, which I want to check out.
Yeah.
But, I don't need more podcasts.
No. But, Stacey, I do authorize you to download all 100 episodes of this one. No. And just go, this is another one. Like, you get the boys into it. You can have mommy son time. And
we don't drive in the car together anymore.
Look, put their asses in the car and drive them to Wawa and listen to this podcast.
No.
Which actually, fun fact, I didn't listen to the 100th episode about Tadum, it's Netflix, but the Netflix sound is actually a pulled sound from the series House of Cards, where Frank Underwood is banging his fist on a desk. And it's a sound they played in that. That's where the sound came from.
Interesting.
I learned that from TikTok.
Oh, God.
Oh, great. You only have a few more days with that. So, enjoy.
Wah, wah.
He's going to cry. What do you mean?
I'm going to lose all my recipes.
What? That's what you do on TikTok?
I made frozen. Look, that's a whole other podcast. We're going to do a show at some point, what Chris has learned on TikTok.
So you've gone from YouTube to TikTok. Okay.
Yes. Because I have the attention span of the updog.
I always say a flea.
Yeah, definitely flew.
Squirrel. All right. So we've been at this for an hour and 20 minutes, and
Probably cut out the last 10.
it's going to be less than that. No, who knows? I'll talk to the editor. Most of it goes in. We just kind of shrink it down a bit. If you've got feedback on the podcast, go out to podcastpd.com/feedback. We want to tackle your questions and topics in future episodes. So if you've got ideas, we're always looking that could warrant you being a guest or, not. We've got some great episodes planned. We're going to continue the look ahead and previewing the upcoming school year when we record live our next episode on Sunday, August 23rd. This is coming at you as a podcast on Wednesday, August 19th. Thank you for listening and thank you for supporting the podcast. One future episode that we do have coming up, we're going to be talking to Bruce Reicher and company, because Bruce has a new book coming out that he teased last episode. And if you're wondering where Bruce was when we released it as a podcast, it got released after the thing we had Bruce on to talk about, so I cut it out of the podcast version. So sorry, Bruce. It's on the YouTube version, but it happened after the Wakelet event. So in editing, it didn't make sense to release it as the podcast. But we will have Bruce on in full with his co-authors to talk about the book that he released about creating media and content in the classroom, whether it's podcasts, news shows, things like that, blogging in your class and with your students. So that's a future episode. We're probably also going to be speaking to James Sturdivant, who just released a new book called Teaching in Magenta, something to that effect, Teaching in Magenta.
Correct.
So we're going to coordinate with James Sturdivant and have James on the show to talk about that text. And
Also a great podcast to listen to.
also, he has a great podcast to listen to as well. So we'll talk about podcasting and Teaching in Magenta with James. AJ, before we go, what's going on Reflect Ed?
Episode 3 dropped August 3rd. I don't know. That was the date. Episode 3 is out. Episode 4, the fourth episode will be released. I don't know dates. August 7th. Let's say the 17th. Let's go with that.
All right. So if you haven't
just pulling
listened to
dates out of
AJ's episode yet,
I think that's
it's
right.
Monday the 17th. No, he's on track.
Okay.
So if you're listening to this on the podcast side and you haven't listened to episode 4 of Reflect Ed, go subscribe, reflectedpodcast.com. The latest episode.
Appreciate that. Sorry about that. Yes, please.
Yeah, no problem. That's what I do.
Follow me on the socials.
The latest episode of the House of Ed Tech, episode 161, is available for your listening pleasure, where I talked about teaching tips and ed tech strategies for fall 2020 or anytime. And I make 5 points, and then I crowdsourced a whole bunch of other responses on Twitter and Facebook. So your voice might very well be a part of that episode if you answered that question on Twitter or Facebook. You can get to that at chrisnessy.com. Stacey, how's your pot? Oh, sorry.
What's your number?
What's your number?
I'm at 2074.
What the?
I don't get it.
Okay.
Now
So
you just added 100.
what? No, I'm not adding them. That's why I was
my goodness.
Oh. So I don't know where they all come from. I think sometimes they just get re-downloaded. But
I think our next impromptu Facebook broadcast has to be the three of us going through your podcasts.
Yeah.
Where maybe we get the community
Intervention.
to chime in on like it or spike it. And like it, you keep it, spike it, you just delete it off your phone.
maybe, I don't know. It's a lot. And I've been on like this book binge with my book club. I've been reading a lot just on my own. Like last month I read 9 books. And
That's awesome.
That's a lot of listening.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not reading. It's not in-hand reading. It's listening. So
It's ear reading. It's ear reading.
Yeah, and it's taken up a lot of the time that I devoted to podcasts, and I'm not driving around as much anymore. So that was part of my podcast listening. I don't know, but yeah, I'm currently listening to White Fragility, and it is not a good listen, but the information is amazing. So like, and I know we talked about that when we had Ken Shelton on. So, and he talked about how I started in the right order. And so I read White Fragility, I read Stamped. So, I'm definitely trying to educate myself on some of the issues that I feel I'm lacking and things that I want to be able to talk about with my kids in an intellectual and informed way. that's backed with information. So yeah, if I can find some podcasts on it, I have to do some research. I know there are some good ones out there that Ken also shared when he was on with us. What was that, 79 or 78, Chris?
79.
79. Yeah. So if you're interested in what we're talking about, how to be an anti-racist and anti-bias, Ken Shelton, episode 79. So yeah, white fragility. It's just a struggle to listen to. I feel like Ferris Bueller's teacher's reading to me. It's so rough.
Anyone know what this is?
Of course,
Bueller.
of course, you have that sound.
And I just want to throw in, again, Stacey just invited you. If you'd like to learn how to be anti-racist and an anti-biased educator, go check that out, podcastpd.com/79. And if you are a racist and biased educator and you have no interest in changing, stop listening to our show. Go away.
Or get a book and inform yourself.
Yeah.
I just gave you 3 titles.
Whip out your wand.
Whip out my wand. All right. It is time to say goodbye. So say goodbye, AJ.
Goodbye, AJ.
Say goodbye, Christopher.
Goodbye, Christopher.
Goodbye, Podcast PD.
All right. And we call that silence for editing. So everything we're about to say does not appear in the final product for sure. So this is bonus time. Thank you for checking us out tonight, whether you watched on Periscope or YouTube or Facebook inside of the Podcast PD Facebook group. We appreciate it. We appreciate your comments. Thanks for hanging with us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. We love you guys.
Thanks for joining us, Stephanie.
And Facebook user.
Oh, her name is Elaine, I think. I looked it up.
Oh,
Thank you, Lane.
yeah. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you, Freddie.
And the one person who liked it on Facebook. If you're not subscribed, go to podcastpd.com/go.
Oh, Dave was listening to. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys.